Hey guys, welcome back to the Casphere Podcast. My name is John. Today we have back on the show Nick Heid of spearfishing SoCalSC.com. We were going to talk about reading the surf, but I think we covered it pretty well in the last couple episodes. So let's switch gears to crazy catches because Nick has a bunch. And I think the first one everybody's probably thinking about is your Yellowtail from the surf. So let's go into that one.
Yeah, so that was, I went in that day and my goal was to catch a yellowtail. And, that's it. I'm kidding. I would never, there's no way I was expecting anything like that. I was actually, long story short, I'll get into the long story, but we were just going for sharks and it was complete luck. But the way it all went down is we hit a local beach that, I had fished plenty times in the past, and we went out doing pretty much a normal session. A lot of it was with two clients, a father son, and a lot of the clients, which I think the best way to go about surf fishing, especially if it's doable, is to fish to the conditions. Don't go out there forcing like I want a shark today. That's all I want, or I want a Corbina today. That's all I want, which you can absolutely go do. But the way I like to work is I will bring my shark stuff, I will bring my Corbina stuff, I will bring my halibut stuff. And whatever the conditions show that day is what I'm gonna do. And that day it looked good for both Corbina, light tackle stuff, which Carolina rig you can pretty much fish any conditions. But it was also nice mellow surf and current, so we could do sharks. So what we had done was it was an evening session. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think we showed up around 3:30 or 4, and we were planning to fish till 8. And we started with Carolina rig, and it was pretty dang slow. But typically when I'm sharking, for reasons stated in the past episodes, um, I like to wait till crowds kind of dissipate. So we were waiting on sharking for a little while, and we started doing some light tackle stuff. And I think one of the first couple casts for this guy's son, he got a really nice spot fin. And of course that set the tone, like, oh hell yeah, this is gonna be an awesome session. And after that spot fin, it was pretty dead. I think maybe we got one other fish between then, but I could be wrong. I do have this whole written out, so I'd have to go review the article. But it was super slow. Eventually, we threw a shark rod out. I think we ended up throwing 2 shark rods out, but I forget if we did. But when we got those out, it took forever. Nothing was going on, nothing at all. And we found a spot way south, and I shouldn't have been as far from the rods as I was, but way south of our shark rods. And it was just like, all right, we're getting bites here. So I got the dad on a good bite over there, and we were getting some nibbles. And I was going to go grab his son and take him over there. But I remember telling him, like, hey, I'm pretty far from the rods right now, so I'm going to get your son, bring him over here, and I'm going to hang out by the rods. You two work this bite, but I want to be there if something happens, because we're getting pretty close to sunset, and this is the time. If something's going to happen, this is it. And just as I get down closer to the rods, I'm still like maybe 20 yards away, and I'm throwing out, I think, my first cast since then. And I was with clients, but my buddy every once in a while just tags along, and he was, I think, on the north side of the rods. And just as I throw my cast out, I hear Nick, and he's sitting there yelling, and my rod is, I kid you not, it's like a typical shark bite. You've got your tap 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 tap, and then it goes full bend, but it's like it's bouncing as it goes full bend. Whereas this thing, it looked like just a huge, like what a huge bat ray does. It just goes, your rod's up and your rod's down, and it's just pointed out. I'd call it correcting for the bend in it, a 90-degree angle. And it's just, line is just flying off the spool. So I get to it, I pick it up, turn the drag to where I want it, and I'm yelling at my clients, come down, we're on. And of course they're probably, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 yards down the beach. So they got to reel in, they got to walk down. And looking back, I'm partially thankful because I got the opportunity to fight it for a little bit. But I picked it up, turned the drag, leaned back, and the entire time it took for my clients to get to me, it was on its initial run. And it was just taking line like no other. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest soup I've ever hooked. It didn't, the hit looked like a bat ray, but you could feel that it wasn't a ray in that run. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So my clients get there, and I got to feel maybe the first minute of the fight, maybe 45 seconds. And so as soon as they get there, I kind of, it's the dad because the son was like, oh, you take it, because I already got a stop in. And looking back, I'm like, ooh, you messed up. But I handed him the rod, kind of gave him the overview, hey, keep attention, just do what you can. So after that, I run up to my bag, get my pliers, my tape measure, and my phone for the picture. And, maybe 30 seconds later, I'm back with them, and I look at him, and the line is still flying off the reel. I'm like, has it stopped? And he's like, no, it's still going. So this run must have lasted 2 minutes. That sounds wrong, but it lasted a while. And it came to the point where I was looking at the reel, and it looked like 1/5 capacity left on the reel. So I was like, somewhat calmly, like, hey, you need to get in the water because it's gonna spool you. And he looks at me like confused, and I'm like, you need to get in the water now because it's gonna spool you, and we can't let that happen. So just as I say that, it darts left, so he's able to kind of run down the beach with it, which is, I know with the boat you can chase it down. That's our version of chasing it down. So it darted left, and we gained some line, and I'm looking left, and I see 2 girls in the water, and literally it got to the point where the line was what had to be around them, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a big shark right by them. And so I'm running down there yelling like, hey guys, get out of the water, there's probably a big shark in the water. And just as I do that, I see his rod, and it goes slack, just slack as ever. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And at this point, I was like, all right, well, maybe when you were running down, you didn't have the proper tension. I know sometimes when you run down, it's tough to get that proper tension. And when it goes slack, you just give it an opportunity to spit it. So I took the rod from him, and I'm reeling it in, and I'm ready to rebait it as it gets closer. And just as it gets maybe 40, 30 yards out, it takes off again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on. And I guess what had happened was it must have darted left and then darted in before it might have seen the girls out there and darted in. I don't know, but bottom line is it came back in, and we were still on. And to the point where it actually came back in, and we saw it, and I see what looks like a dorsal fin with a little bit of yellow tint, but I'm not freaking out there because leopard sharks, when sometimes their fins are relatively transparent through the sunset, like it looks somewhat yellow tinted. But the weird thing was with the yellow tint, and I saw the tail too, and it looked like, okay, it's a shark tail, because I only saw the top half, and I was like, it looks like a small leopard shark. And for the fight, it could not have been a small leopard shark because it was just insane. So it goes away again. We can't see it anymore. It takes off a couple more times, and I'm at this point really confused because I was like, all right, so this thing hit like a bat ray, fought like the biggest soup, came in. It's not a soup. It looks like a tiny leopard shark, but like, what the heck? So it finally it comes in closer again, and I'm talking to my buddy and talking to my client like, what the heck is this thing? And finally we see the yellow fin again, and I'm like, that's it. Is that it? Is that a yellowtail? And I'm thinking, okay, yellowtail, or is it a striper? Because I mean, maybe they've got a little tint in there. But before I remember anything else, I've got my hand on the tail, and I'm dragging it in, and as we get it on the shore, I swear I'm the most stoked person there. My client's like, sweet, and I'm like, dude, you don't even know, this is crazy. and it's COVID and all, and I'm like, can I hug you? But it was just a moment I will never forget. We got it on the shore and got our pictures and measured it out. It was 57 inches full length, 53.5 pounds, and just a fight that I know I only fought it for a minute or so, but I would not change anything about it. It was awesome.
Did you say 53 pounds?
53.5
Oh
pounds,
my
yeah.
God. That's a tank, dude.
I know.
And that's a world record here or something? Because that's huge.
That's a land-based record from what I can tell. I know the one off the South Mission jetty was something like 45 pounds. But then again, that's a jetty too. This was from the beach. Yeah, I mean, nothing. I can't say I was targeting it. It was a total fluke, but it was a fluke that was life-changing. It was crazy.
That's a once-in-a-lifetime fish, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the funny thing is, like, I always talk about, yeah, you never know what you're going to get from the surf. And I was saying that before I got the Yellowtail. And it's like, that's something that people out there on a boat would be stoked about. And it's just like, wow.
Dude, I've shot a 35-pounder, and that thing took me for a ride, you know? And I know a lot of the guys, like, they would love to get anything bigger than 50. That's like a, you know, I know they get up to 90 or so down in Baja, but it's like the fact that a 50-something is near shore in San Diego, that's crazy to me. That's just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Did you guys keep it or did you release it?
I had to keep it. So what happened was my client, obviously it was his choice. Like, hey, do you want to keep it? And he's like, I mean, I do, but I don't know how to clean this thing. I don't want to deal with the meat. And it came down to, he was like, hey, if you take this home, clean it, and give me a couple steaks, you can have the rest of it. And I was like, done. I'll make it happen. So I took it home, cleaned it that night, and brought over a couple steaks to him the next day, and we called it good. It was, I mean, just terrific. We made a whole event out of it. I had, I think, like 15 people over, and we finished the whole day. We did a little bit of sashimi. We did my buddy had a Traeger. We smoked a little bit. It was just awesome. Yeah.
Well, guys, you never know what you're going to catch, and I hope you all catch a Yellowtail. That is impressive. Tomorrow, we're going to wrap up some of the other crazy catches, halibut, soupfin, and all that. So come back tomorrow. See you guys. Hey guys, one more thing before you go. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast app. And if you like the podcast, please consider rating it on Apple Podcasts and leaving a review. This helps other people find the show. Thanks.